probably the least confident I've been in the team. And now that we're in Argentina, Western Force, Queensland Reds, we're on our 4th game. This is where we start to see some cohesiveness in tours usually. Boy, I'm going to be a bit more critical in this video. Some of the things that I've let go in terms of the Argentina game, things I've tried to be a bit more level-headed in the Western Force game and the Queensland Reds game. I'm kind of done with a lot of that. For a bit of context, I woke up this morning. This is the first weekend I think I've probably had in about a month and a half, where the only thing that I had to do in terms of obligatory things that need to happen in my life, there's a lot going on. The only thing I had to do this weekend really is watch this game and provide a video. So I woke up in good spirits, had plenty of rest, got the laptop set up, watched the game, got my Lions jersey on for the first time in this series. But it all started off on a bad note. First of all, John Barkley does not look well. I mean, he needs some sun. It's summertime, John. I don't know whether you're in Australia for the tour itself. Just, get some sun on your skin. You look grumpy anyway, but Jesus, at least Will Greenwood, there's some criticism, I think, of some of his analysis, but at least he's got a mohawk and a mullet, keeping the spirit of Australia into this tour for the analysis. But on to some more serious points. I don't think there was a whole lot of positives about the Tars' performance. I think Gamble was a very bright spark. He was excellent. Maybe he plays himself onto this team, but I honestly think Fraser McWright's probably the out-and-out 7 within this Australia team. Andrew Kellaway was nowhere to be seen. Tupou, tight head prop. I think he was excellent, other than the scrum, which was concerning, but he plays like a inside centre with some of the hands that he has. I can't remember if it was a disallowed try, it was an allowed try, but he picked the ball off the back of a ruck and faked it and then passed it to the point where he made 2 men bite on him, which for a tight head prop is insane to see. And then we'll talk about the positives for the Lions. Scrum, an obvious positive, fully dominant, and you're going against a tight head that's probably more than likely going to be the tight head that you're playing in the test series. So that is a positive. Defence for the Lions, much, much better. Line speed was much better, but not only that, there wasn't dog legs in the line speed. We've seen it multiple times where line breaks have been made against the Lions, where someone's blitzed out by themselves, a dog leg's created and someone makes a break. But not today. I think the defence was much better, the line speed was better. I think a lot of the times where the Tars were making pressure on the Lions were off of offensive mistakes like knock-ons or an awry kick. So the only way that the Tars really got into sort of Lions territory was basically from Lions' mistakes in attack. And then that leads me on to my criticism of this team. Right, handling errors, not good enough. At this point, we're 4 games in, every excuse has been made under the sun. You can hear it with the commentators saying stuff like, people are trying too hard, they're touring, they haven't been together long enough, etc., etc., etc. You know what? All these things might be true, but you've now got 2 games left. You've got a game against the Brumbies, and you've then got the invitational team against the Australian New Zealand team. And that's it. That's all the purchase that you have left until you've got left. So it doesn't matter anymore that you're tourists and you've only been together for X amount of time and blah, blah, blah. Doesn't matter. That excuse has to be over. The handling errors need to stop. It's too much, There's clunkiness in attack. People are too close together on supporting lines, so they don't know whether someone's going to pop it off or whatever. The only time it worked once was Tuapolotu to Hugh Jones, where he went in for a try. People are playing way too close to the line in attack. For an invitational side like the Lions, it requires too much execution for these players, apparently. So just cut it out, stop it, hold a little bit of a deeper line, spread the ball a little bit wider out, stop trying to look for those easy offloads straight off of tackles, etc. It's not working. So that's first off. Handling errors, not good enough. If we're going to talk about handling errors, let's talk about support lines. Too often, line breaks are made by this team on the off occasion that those short offloads work. The line break happens, and then all too often the player that's holding the ball from the line break, completely lacking any support whatsoever, turnover happens, game is cut dead. This is against the Waratahs. The Waratahs that are missing a few key players, some of their best players. A Waratahs team that really didn't do anything in Super Rugby this year. You're getting turned over with the lack of support players with that. Not good enough. Sorry. For me, this is embarrassing. Like, it's embarrassing. It's not good at all. I think you can just sense I'm a bit frustrated with the whole thing. And I think, there's all these excuses that you can make for a team like this. But at the end of the day, their opposite team that they're going to be playing at the end of the series, Australia, is being coached by Joe Schmidt. And Joe Schmidt, in about 3 or 4 games with Australia, completely on their knees after the Eddie Jones era, the second Eddie Jones era, being completely on their knees after that, they turned it around against international teams within about 4 games together. There was a huge amount of turnover within the squad as well in terms of the players that were being picked and who was going to be trusted to be the starters. But then eventually it kind of culminated in the Autumn Nations Series and a Rugby Championship where it all just started to come together a little bit. And we're going backwards. The Lions are going backwards. We're not going forwards. We had an Argentina game where there was obviously some key mistakes, and I think it was a pretty good game for a first time for an invitational team. The Western Force game was clunky for 60 minutes until eventually the substitutes for the Western Force came on and the floodgates were opened. Queensland Reds game I thought was a bit more of an improvement on that, where we added a bit of more, like a 10% better performance. And now I feel like we've minus 20%. I'm running out of words and superlatives in here. And I don't think it's just on the players. I think the coaching staff, I think some of the selection and also some of the game planning is not great. One in particular for me, I think, is Marcus Smith at the time he's been given a 10 shirt. Now, I don't want you to take that as me thinking like Marcus Smith should be the test starter. I don't. We'll talk about who I think should be starting tests in a little bit. But it's more the fact of Marcus Smith has been given no chance whatsoever to really get within this squad. He played at 15 in the Argentina game. He's not a 15. He was only covering there for England because George Furbank was injured. And I've counted he's had a total of about 60 minutes playing at 10 for the Lions so far, and he's not started a single game. I think, a player like Marcus Smith needs a lot of time to build chemistry with the players around him because of his unpredictability. If you're looking for Marcus Smith to be in there for your 10 and 15 cover, which Andy Farrell has said he's going to be, I just don't think he's been given enough time to be successful in a test series. And instead what you do, and this is kind of leading on to my next point, getting riled up, is you bring in Owen Farrell for an injured Elliot Daly. Owen Farrell, who has not performed well in the top 14, he's been injured for the vast majority of it. Elliot Daly, who comes off the tour with an injury, can play outside centre, can play 15, and can play wing. You get that utility, you take that, and then you throw Owen Farrell in this team instead. Owen Farrell, who can play 10 and 12 badly. That's who you bring in, right? And you've already got competition enough for time at 10 with Finn Russell, Finn Smith and Marcus Smith isn't having enough time in that 10 shirt. And there's just so many other players that you could bring in instead of Owen Farrell that are just in better form. Tom Jordan, George Furbank if he's healthy, Blair Murray. And I would even argue, because of the high ball issues that the Lions have had up until this point, Freddie Stewart would have been a better option than Owen Farrell at this point to come into the tour. I'm just getting frustrated. In all honesty, it feels like a caravan going to nowhere. Frustration. Hugo Keenan comes in for his first game, not only for the Lions, but I think it's his first game in probably over a month at this point, whether he's been injured or due to illness. I thought he had a bad game. He's known as the no mistakes guy. He made a couple of key knock-ons in attack, and he also missed a tackle that led to a Waratahs try. And in a situation like that, I've seen tackles like that being missed has led to probably Prendergast not being on this tour, and I think it's led to Freddie Stewart being left out of England's lineup because of just being that last man you have to make that tackle. It just wasn't good. I think the performance today for Blair Kinghorn was steady. I think when he moved to fullback, he was steady. I feel like that 15 shirt is his to lose at this point. But there were some good performances. For me, Finlay Bealham is the in-form tight head at the moment. I thought it was scrummaging was amazing. which is fascinating because if you Google Finlay Bealham, apparently his weight is 54 kg. So very impressive for someone that weight to be performing at the level that he does at tight head prop. Joking aside though, for someone, especially, I would have said this as well, being the third choice tight head prop and coming in to replace Sander Ferguson, for me, he's got to start first test. Ty Furlong, you could probably argue at his peak is better. But Finlay Bealham, I think, has probably earned that tight head shirt to start the first test. Ellis Genge as well. I think coming off the bench, he was great. Alex Mitchell wins man of the match. And I thought his performance was good. But the problem is with Alex Mitchell is that when he's running it, it becomes the Alex Mitchell show. And what I mean by that is that he plays a bit like a French scrum half where everything's dictated by him. And the attack, it rises and falls based on his choices. There were certainly times when he made excellent decisions in terms of picks and goes and scouting off the side of rucks. But there were other times where you got an attacking opportunity within a 22, and he just kicks it up and over the top of the back of the defensive line, and he goes nowhere, and the attack is dead. So for me, looking at a test team, and Gibson Park is probably your out and out 9, and we'll talk about who I think should be starting for the Lions tests after this. But I don't think Alex Mitchell needs to be coming off the bench and be the guy that runs the show, because that's what Jameson Gibson Park does, and he does it better. At this point, I would be picking Ben White on the bench just because he's more of like a live spark, a pace changer. And he'll just get the attack going without too much of like having to dominate the play with his decision making. So, as I said, let's talk about, I think, some starters for me for the British and Irish Lions in their first test. I think I'm starting to get an idea probably who's going to be in this starting 15. If I'm honest, right, this is who I think the starting 15 at the moment is for me. Ellis Genge, loose head prop, Dan Sheehan hooker, Finlay Bealham, tight head prop. Second rows, Maro Itoje, Joe McCarthy. Speaking of second rows, just pause there for a second. We'll work back to teams. Scott Cummings had a great game today. For someone who I think was also, third choice in terms of that second row shirt, I think he played excellently today. If there's a test tomorrow, I'd be picking him ahead of Ollie Chesham, Ty Byrne, and James Ryan. I thought James Ryan was pretty good as well today, but Scott Cummings for me, I think, should be on the bench for the Lions test series as an out-and-out second row. Unbelievably good game in terms of just getting around the park and doing the hard graft stuff such as lineouts, mauls, rucks, but also he was the criticism that I had for the support play not being there. He was the exception. I thought he was great. So, going back again. Genge, Sheehan, Bealham, Itoje, Joe McCarthy, back row. I think it's going to be Jack Morgan for your open side. I think for number 8, I will be going for Henry Pollock. And for 6, I'll be going for Jack Conan. I think that just adds a perfect mix of like grit and also flair within a back row. I don't think Ty Byrne's been playing particularly well on tour at the moment. Whether he's in second row or he's playing blindside flanker. If he's in second row, he just doesn't look like to be enough of an enforcer in terms of physicality. And when he's playing at 6, he doesn't look as quick or mobile as he needs to be. So I think that's probably your odds-on kind of pack for me that's going to be starting in the test series. Back line, I would say it's Gibson Park, Finn Russell, probably the 2 safest picks at the moment. Tuaplotu at 12. Hugh Jones or Ringrose, I think that's the biggest question mark for me at the moment. That 13 shirt, I think out of a tour that's probably underperformed in general so far, I think 13 out of those 2, both of them have overperformed. I think they've both played excellently so far. Wingers, I'd be picking James Lowe and Tommy Freeman. Duan van der Merwe, defensively not good enough. Mac Hansen, too up and down, does something excellent and then something that's not so great, even with his incredible work rate. Who else have we got in this team? God only knows. Is there anybody else in this team that plays winger? I can't think of them. And then fullback is probably going to be Blair Kinghorn. Hugo Keenan has probably got a game and a half to be in competition for it, but Kinghorn just seems like the safer choice at this point. And that's it. Frustrating game. And I think it was all summarised in the end by a maul that I'll try and put on the screen here. In the last 5 minutes of the game, in the 75th minute, it was a maul from a line out, and the maul, it was unstructured, it was unwieldy, it lacked cohesion, and in the end it was penalised and brought back because it was illegal. And that, for me, just summarised this whole game. Frustrating. Just frustrating. And more than anything, they're just, the way they're performing at the moment is just boring. Like, it's not good. You're not using the players that you have available to you to make an expansive game out of this. So that's it. I think, next week, I think on Wednesday, I want to be seeing Marcus Smith get a full 80. I wouldn't criticise the Owen Farrell pick as much if he just doesn't get any game time and he's just kind of brought in as a coach rather than playing. I think that's probably what he's best suited at this point. Trying to force Owen Farrell onto this pitch at the moment, I think, is just going to end in disaster. But that's it. That's all I've got to say at this point. You can tell I'm probably a bit frustrated, but honestly, I think I'm probably echoing what a lot of people are thinking at this point. At least I hope so. Let me know in the comments what you think. But yeah, that's it for me. I'll see you on Wednesday.